but this is I'm doing a single welt pocket. So this is the welt pocket that I'm going to demonstrate.
Hold the line caller.
Amy's just moving the mini tripod in so I can show you. So this is a welt pocket. So I'll turn it around that way so you can see. So it's a single welt pocket, and I've done it in bright colours so that you can see. That's the pocket. Oh, excuse my ironing. My iron crashed on the on the iron. So to make one of these, what you need your fabric, your main fabric, and this is something that you could do. Your pattern may ask you for this, and a lot of pattern companies do different instructions for welt pockets, but I like this way of doing it. It's my favourite way of doing it. So if you're going to do a welt pocket on a garment, I would always do a practice one. Well worth practicing it first, because you will be cutting a hole in the front of your garment, so you want to make sure that you're completely happy with the process first of all. So on your pattern you'll probably have marks for where your pocket's going to go, and you need to draw a line between these marks. Now I'm using, because this is a dark colour fabric, I'm using a tailor's soap, which is a chalk that disappears when you iron. You'll be marking on the right side of your garment, so you need to have something that's going to disappear. And obviously you can use the friction pens, but these wouldn't show up on this fabric, and they don't do any pale colours. So I use the tailor's soap, and you can just mark that, and that will disappear with the iron. So you need to draw a line for the length of the between the two dots. You then need a fabric that you're going to use for your welt. And now for this particular one, I don't use the pattern piece that comes with the pattern you're making. I make my own one, because then the measurements would all work out. So this piece of fabric is 6 centimeters deep, and I've interfaced it and folded it in half. Okay, and it's a couple of centimeters longer than the marks here. So what you do is, this will be the top of my garment, and this is the bottom. So you place your prepared welt piece below the line, with the edge of the welt next to the line. And just to mention, I have interfaced where the pocket's going to go, because we're going to be cutting a hole here, so you want this to be interfaced. So the raw edge, the raw edges go next to your line here, and you've got an even piece sticking out each side. I'm just going to pin that in place, but not too close, because I want to draw a line on my, oops, there we go. I'm just going to move that up a bit because it's not quite in place. Also, what I need to do now is draw a line where those dots were at the end. You want to draw a line so it's perpendicular. Draw it with my chalk so you can see it. Perpendicular to the centre line. So you've got your middle line, you've got 2 perpendicular lines, and I've carried the perpendicular line onto my welt. There. Now I'm going to draw another line 1 centimetre from this edge here. So I'm going to draw a line here. And in the gap so I can see what I'm doing. There we go. Now we want to stitch along this line, but what I want to recommend is that you don't start at one end and stitch along. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start here, and I'm going to stitch this way, and when I get to this point here where the 2 lines meet, I'm going to put my needle down and turn and come back the other way. When I get to here, I'm going to put the needle down and then turn and come back and finish about here. And by doing that, you can be much more accurate about your starting and ending points. It's really important with this pocket to be as accurate as possible, which is why it's well worth practicing it. So I'm just going to stitch that now. Oh, I just need to get the foot for my machine, which is all the way over there. Go. Okay, so I'm going to stitch that along. Amy's going to come in.
I'm just going to do from here, so I'm not in your way.
Okay, that would be great. So I do need to try and be accurate with this, and it's really difficult when the camera's there. So I'm going to start here. I've got my stitch length on about 2.2, so you want a fairly small stitch. Come forward and stop right on where the two lines meet. Turn around and come back along the line. And then I think I need one more stitch. If you need to do it manually, just do one more stitch and then turn and come back the other way, just for about a couple of centimetres. There we go. So that's the first bit of stitching done. I'm just going to trim those threads off. Now, as well as your main piece of fabric and your welt, you'll also need two pieces to line the pocket, 2 squares of fabric. And I normally have at least one of these matching my outside fabric, and the other one could be lining fabric. I've just used 2 pieces the same here. And pocket bags can be any size. You could use the one that comes with your pattern, or you could use just a square of fabric. So it's about the same width as your welt, and then a square. So I'm going to put one edge of the square of fabric next to the chalk line but on above it. So the raw edges are butting up to each other. I'm just going to pin these two together. And I'm going to take my chalk.
Bonnie's saying, are you working on the right side or the wrong side?
The right side. This is the right side of the fabric, which is why I was saying you need to make sure that whatever you're using to mark your fabric will come off. So always test that. So this is on the right side of the fabric. So once you've put your edges together here, you're going to extend your perpendicular lines onto your pocket bag there, and on this side as well. And then draw another line that's 1 centimetre from the edge. Here. And join those marks up. It's all got very quiet over there.
They're all concentrating.
Good. So again, what I'm going to do is start here and come this way, put my needle down, turn around, come back to this end, needle down, turn around, and finish there. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. So again, starting and coming forward, just take it slowly so you can be really accurate on where you stop. I'm not sitting in my normal sewing position, so I'm hoping that I'm going to be accurate. Come back the other way, all the way to the far end. And then turn and stitch back to finish. I need to do one more stitch there. I'm just going to go back and do that tiny bit while Amy resets the camera. I didn't go. Okay. So we're now going to cut down the middle. Here we're going to cut down the middle, and then we need to cut into the corners, but we don't want to cut the lining or the welt. So I'm going to start it off by folding in half here. And just make a little snip. Okay, so I'm going to now cut down the middle centre line and stop about 2 centimetres from the end on both directions. So cut down the middle line and stop about 2 centimetres from the end. And at this point you can turn over and cut up to the end of your stitching there. So make sure that the welt and the pocket bag are out of the way, and just cut up to as close as you can to the end of your stitching. So when you want really sharp scissors and cut right up to that corner. There we go. And the other way. And I like to stop about 1.5 to 2 centimetres because these triangles are much easier to deal with when they're a bit bigger. So making them a bit bigger is definitely more helpful. So there we go. Once we've done that, we can then push the pocket bag through and just pull that out of the way. There, and then we're going to tuck the welt in. So you're going to push the welt up and then tuck the ends underneath on each side. So what you want to do is have those little triangles sitting on top of the welt. Now you'll be able to tell whether you've snipped enough if you haven't got any wrinkles in these corners here. So make sure you haven't got any wrinkles, a bit like when we did the bound buttonhole a couple of weeks ago. So if I was doing this at home, I would press this at every stage. I'm doing this for a garment, I would press at every stage, but just because we hadn't turned the iron on, so that's okay. I can finger press this fabric, but I would press that if I was doing this at home. Then you're going to lift up one side and you'll see that one of the little triangles here is laying on top of your welt. I'm going to stitch that to secure it. So you want to stitch along here. So from the corner of the triangle to the other corner. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch along here and then I'm going to do a couple of stitches backwards and forwards like this just to secure the whole triangle to the welt. I'm going to do the same thing on both sides. So again, I'm going to try and be really accurate with this. And then go back. Just going to take that off because I just went a little bit too far there. I'm going to slow my machine down. This is a bit speedier than my machine. There we go. So I'm just going to do a couple of stitches forward and backwards. Like that. Just to hold that triangle in place. So I'm going to turn over the other side and do the same thing. Pull the triangle out. I'm going to draw a line so I can see what I'm doing here. So I want to stitch from this point here down to that point there. Make sure everything's nice and straight. Here we go. There we go. So those little triangles are now stitched on each side. Just quickly snip that extra stitch that I did there, so I don't want that one there. That's it. So now we can see that that is all beautifully square there. So now I'm going to push the pocket bag down. So if I put my hand down the pocket bag is there, and I'll probably give that a little press at this point as well to make sure that that's all nice and neat. So we've got half the pocket done. So if I lift this up now, that's what it looks like inside. And I'm going to trim some of these threads off out the way. Take my other pocket bag and place it right sides together with the welt. So make sure everything lines up and your other pocket piece is going right sides together with your welt. I'm just going to pin it here. Okay, so I'm going to just stitch. I'm going to stitch fairly close to the stitching that was already there. There we go. So that's the other side of the pocket bag attached. Now going back to the right side. At every stage I do this because I make sure my pocket is going in the right direction. So put your hand inside your pocket, give everything a press so you know that everything's going in the right direction. And then lift up the front of your garment and you're going to pin and stitch your two pocket bags together. Now your pocket bags will never match because it all depends on the thickness of your fabric. So that's why I just use random rectangles of fabric because they're never going to match, and you can trim them off afterwards. So fold your garment back and pin everything together here and down this side. And then I'm going to just stitch these two together. Your pocket bag, like I say, can be any size you like. This is your design. You don't have to use the pattern pieces that the pattern company give you. Let's speed this up a bit now. No, I'm not doing delicate bits. You could make them curved on the corners if you wanted to. There we go, and just come up the other side. Put it down. And then finally I would neaten these edges, and you could overlock them, but I tend to use pinking shears for this. This is normally going to go in something that's a lined jacket, so you don't want to be adding anything that might show through when you press it, and overlockers can do. You can overlock it with a thick fabric, but I tend to use pinking shears to do this because then it doesn't create any bulk. It still stops the... I did wash these after Amy used them for
the orange peel.
Orange peel last week. Should really have separate pinking shears, shouldn't they, for the kitchen? We have to make do in these times.
Cocktail shears.
Yes, cocktail pinking shears. Let's get rid of all those. And there we go. That's your perfect welt pocket.